When it comes to luxury cars, SUVs are the sales superstars, accounting for the vast majority of growth in recent years. But which one is best? We've assembled four of the most popular mid-sized SUVs. From Audi is the Q5 and Volvo the XC60, each the top seller for their respective brands. And BMW's direct rival, the X3, completes a trio of 2-litre turbo diesel engines. But the Lexus NX bucks the diesel trend with a hybrid system which teams a 2.5-litre petrol engine with electric motors. Now, one of the big pluses with that hybrid system is the ability to regenerate the energy that you'd normally lose in heat through the braking system. So it effectively turns it into electricity and you can use it later to power the car. So around town, you've got significant fuel benefits. Out on the open road, they're not as pronounced. What you find though is that the throttle response tends to be better around town where it's a bit more lively. Out here, doing say 80 k's an hour, hit the accelerator, and there's a bit of a lag before it gets going and off you go. At $59,500, the Lexus is the most affordable of our quartet and the most powerful with 147 kilowatts. Torque isn't as strong as its rivals, but its 5.7 litres per 100k thirst is impressive. Now the NX is also a little bit unusual in this class. It sort of straddles two classes, mainly because of its size. It's a fraction smaller than the rivals we've got it up here against today. But Lexus makes up for it with heaps of equipment. They've thrown just about everything at this car and it's genuinely well appointed. But the Lexus does have some quirks. It's got a little bit more tyre noise than the competition, which is a bit un-Lexus in some ways. It's also a bit busy over the bumps and it sort of detracts from the luxury feeling. These seats are great though. The front seats are fantastic, a really good blend of comfort and support. Audi's Q5 is a $62,600 proposition and musters 130 kilowatts and a stout 380 newton metres. But it's the thirstiest car here with claim consumption of 6.1 litres per 100 kilometres. The Audi instantly feels easy to drive. It's very sure-footed, a little bit firm in the suspension but not uncomfortable, so it deals really well with the bumps in the corners, and its diesel engine's pretty strong, but best of all is how that diesel works with the transmission. It's got a 7-speed twin-clutch automatic that just shifts gears so smoothly. It's very, very impressive. About the only time you can fault it is around town where there's some initial laziness and it doesn't do such a great job. The Q5 is also pretty spacious, as well as a nice comfy driver's seat. It's got plenty of space for adults in the back and a decent sized boot. The Q5 is not all great news, and it's mainly when you look down the list of features. It's missing a couple of key items. The first one, a reversing camera, which is standard on most SUVs these days and certainly should be standard on one costing this much. It's also missing sat-nav. You can pop them both in for $3,000, but that should really be standard. The BMW X3 isn't cheap at $64,400. When channeled through an 8-speed automatic, it uses just 5.2 litres of fuel for every 100 kilometres. The X3's been around a while but still holds up well, partly because of an update only recently, so it brings it into line with the rest of the family in terms of styling, particularly at the front where the headlights and so on look more like the 3 Series. But it also gets a new diesel engine which brings some more urge to the low end of the rev range, so it makes it a lot more effortless in terms of performance. And the BMW also treads the middle ground in terms of ride and comfort. It's not the most comfortable car here. It's still a firmness to the suspension and in some ways feels a bit heavy-footed, but it's reasonable around the corners. It does feel pretty lively and sits and settles well. And for my money, the X3's got the easiest to operate infotainment system. So great iDrive controller, some pre-programmable buttons, very easy to navigate around. It's just a shame that the screen is so small. It looks like they've tried to save a bit of money on that one. Up front, the X3 is comfortable and certainly spacious, but in the rear it just doesn't have the same attention to detail, and in some ways the cabin feels a bit narrower. Volvo's XC60 is one of the elder statesmen of this category, and even so it still feels pretty fresh, and it's certainly got, from my perspective, one of the best interiors in the business. It's clean, uncluttered, and it looks elegant. A recent update brought this tricky adjustable instrument panel which looks the business and works really well. But the front seats don't have a whole lot of support. You're find yourself sliding around a bit, and it's the first indication that the Volvo isn't really set up for a whole bunch of corners. There's a little bit of steering kickback, and it can just feel a little bit unnerved when you start to ramp up the pace a little bit. The new engine takes it from one of the thirstiest in the class to the most frugal, with consumption of just 4.9 litres per 100 kilometres. Throw in an 8-speed auto, 133 kilowatts and an equal best 400 newton metres, and there's plenty to like. What a massive step up it is. It's now a genuinely impressive engine. Heaps of really low rev torque, so you don't have to rev it hard to make it go pretty well. But the 8-speed automatic doesn't set the bar quite as high. It's generally pretty good and intuitive, but sometimes it's a bit too keen to get into a taller gear, and occasionally its downshifts aren't as smooth as they could be. But the Volvo's got some great unique features, things like child booster seats that pop out of the rear seats, and city safety, which can automatically hit the brakes to avoid a crash. So 4 very impressive mid-sized luxury SUVs, and it's easy to see why these guys are changing the luxury car game. But they're very different, each with their own pros and cons. But the winner today is the BMW X3 20D.